students, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's Mr. Fred here again to take you on a journey in English. So, how have you been? I hope you have been well and I hope you are staying safe. Today our topic is editing. Editing. Many times I have found students who write and just fail to edit what they have written or proofread what they have written. So our topic today will cover proofreading and editing. So what exactly do we mean by proofreading and what do we mean by editing? Proofreading entails checking and correcting errors or mistakes in spelling, grammar, punctuation, paragraphing, and the likes. So after you finish writing, before you turn in your work, before you submit your work, before you publish what you've written, you need to do a proofreading. You take your work, you check for mistakes in grammar, punctuation, in spelling, whether you use the right paragraph, and all of that. If you don't do that, all those mistakes will affect your final score. In my understanding, everybody makes mistakes in writing. Every single person, including myself and professors, they all make mistakes. So it's important that you recognize this fact first before you turn in your work. Even I have been shocked at the mistakes I made after checking my work. Many times, especially when I type text, because I'm in a hurry, I just send it. And before I know it, I see a very huge blunder in what I sent. And then it has forced me to ensure that I check my work before I send it. Likewise, you should check your work before you submit anything you have written, an article, essay, letter, even your exam papers. Always proofread. Now, what do you do when you proofread? Here's a proofreading checklist for you. Check your spelling. Check whether the words you spelled were spelled correctly. It will shock you to discover that because you were in a hurry, certain words that you even knew will be spelled wrongly. Checking will help you identify your mistakes and correct them. Most times, people who don't know how to proofread their work will not even spot their own mistakes. And sometimes they may have to give other people to help them proofread. But over time, you will learn to see your mistakes. And you also appreciate the ability to spot your mistakes and correct them. So checklist number 1, check for spelling mistakes and spelling errors. Also check for punctuation. Sometimes, in fact, a lot of times, students write and don't put the correct end mark. Either they leave it hanging or they just put it wrongly. There's a mistake known as run-on sentence. When you write a sentence, especially if it's a simple sentence, and you do not put the appropriate end mark, and you just go on and write another sentence, that is a run-on sentence, and that's a problem. Another very common mistake is the comma splice, where a writer writes one sentence and then separates it from a completely different sentence with a comma. Ideally, when you write a sentence and you complete your thought and you end your point, you should end it with a period or another end mark that's appropriate. If it's an exclamatory sentence, end with an exclamation mark. If it's a question, end with a question mark. Otherwise, if it's just a regular statement, end with a period. Now, I've often observed that students miss this a lot. So stop making your comma place mistakes and your run-on sentence mistakes and your omission mistakes. Put the end marks where they should be. A lot of students also make mistakes using apostrophe. They make mistakes when they want to show possession. All these can be easily resolved if you check your work. Sometimes if you were supposed to put your apostrophe for a plural possession, check to see that the apostrophe was placed correctly. For instance, if you want to use a plural possession for boys, your apostrophe should come after the S to indicate that what? It's the possession of more than one boy. But if it's for singular, you put the apostrophe before the S. So these are some of the things you should check when you proofread your work. Also check your paragraph. Did you paragraph properly? Or did you write without paragraphing at all? All of these things are what you should check. What about your grammar? Did you use the right tense? Did you use your irregular plurals correctly? Did you use your irregular verbs correctly? These are what you need to check to ensure that your work is well proofread. Now let's move on to editing. Editing simply means improving your work. That's the difference between editing and proofreading. Whereas in proofreading, you focus on grammar, spelling, punctuation, and all of that. When you edit your work, you try to improve your work. For instance, in our previous lessons, I talked about expanded noun phrases. When you check your work and you find that where you could have expanded your noun phrases with adverbials and relative clauses and adjectives, you find that they are missing, you then need to add them to improve your work. If you have written your work and you discover that you could have actually used better vocabulary, by editing your work, you will discover portions of your work that could actually get better vocabulary. And through editing, you can then improve these sections of your work. So there you have it, proofreading and editing. You need to really proofread your work. It's a non-negotiable habit that you must have. Every time you finish writing, proofread and edit your work. I have found it to be a very useful practice. Sometimes, if I check what I've written a day after, even I get shocked at the mistakes I made. So, henceforth, ensure that you proofread and edit your work so you can get the best out of your work. Until we meet, have a lovely day. Bye.